Today we've got an amazing show for you guys. Today we've got Terry Frith here with Gordon Technologies, one of the fastest growing MWD companies or even really service companies in the industry today. Before we get started, I want to be able to thank our sponsors. Wait, we don't have one? Oh, I did it again this week. We've got an amazing show for you guys today. We've got Terry Frith here with Gordon Technologies, one of the fastest growing MWD companies or even service companies in the industry today. Before we get started, I want to be able to thank our sponsors. Wait, we don't have one?
Oh, it's on my phone.
Sorry, that was on my phone, not on the computer there. My mistake. So, as an update, we're still trying to work through some of the technical difficulties. This is LinkedIn Live beta, so if you guys didn't tune in to the very first episode where we had some technical difficulties, and we also had a couple last week, what we're doing is we as a group here were selected to be able to be one of the first of, I think, about 50 people to be able to live stream on LinkedIn. And so that's why we're being able to bring this to you. So we're essentially the guinea pigs for LinkedIn to be able to kind of work out all the bugs. I've still got some things that I need to be able to work on as far as being able to do this. So if you do see me by chance looking at my phone at all this week, it's because we get faster updates on the mobile platform as far as the questions and stuff that you guys will be asking. Speaking of which, guys, go ahead and comment. Let us know where you're watching from. Let us know who's watching. Hit the little thumbs up button so we can see those kind of going through. If you hear something you like or if you're enjoying it, please let us know. This week I got the chance to be able to spend a little bit of time in Midland with a company I do a little bit of site consulting with some new technology. And one of the things I noticed while I was there is that the age of individuals that are joining the business is lowering and lowering and lowering. So I say this because I like to be able to highlight some of the people or highlight people that are up and coming in our industry. And one of the things that I've noticed here recently is with this younger group that's coming in is that you're seeing more people that are less than 30 that are filling VP positions. So when you go into networking or marketing events or even go into some of these industry events, do not brush off any of the people that you get the chance to meet because you never know who's going to be a VP next. It's always been something in the industry that I've noticed is when people, 4 or 5 years ago would brush me aside and just say, oh, okay, I met another guy. When there was really an opportunity to be able to make a connection there and be able to continue to grow your career through the individuals that you meet. So just remember, some of these younger guys or even some of the field guys, they may be field hands now, but they could be VPs, presidents, or somebody that you're selling to in the near future. So give everybody that extra little bit of respect and, especially to some of the new guys that are joining our industry, because without them, the industry wouldn't continue to grow and be where it is today. So having said that, I do want to be able to introduce Terry. Thank you so much for joining us today. I do appreciate it.
Thanks, honored to be here. We take every opportunity that we can to, have some publicity, I guess you could say.
Well,
and so David's been a good guy that I've known for a little while and respect him very much, and anything I can do to help.
Well, I think it's going to make for a great show. So at any point in time that you guys are watching, if you want to, be sure to throw out some questions. I'll be checking my phone throughout. So if there is a good question that's thrown out there, I'll be sure to hit Terry with it. The more difficult the question, the better. But don't ask for any secret sauce because I know he's not going to tell you. So one of the things that I want to be able to start this off with and be able to ask you, and like I said, Gordon Technologies is one of the fastest growing service companies in our business, right? Obviously, everybody knows that I've got a reporting structure that's able to tell me, who's doing what. And I am absolutely blown away by the amount of success that you guys have had. And my question is that how did you guys achieve so much success so early on when so many other companies are trying to do exactly the same thing? I've seen numerous companies come in. I've been a part of numerous companies to come into the industry. What was it that you noticed or that you were able to figure out that allowed you to be able to come into the industry and have this much success and to be able to really expand the way that you guys have?
Well, you know, having a vision to build an MWD company, you can go different business models. You can go a rental business and design the tool, mechanical packaging, all ourselves. So we really don't go out of house. Everything's done in-house, besides the electronics, which are purchased, like I said, at a favorable rate for us based on our volume discounts. So we design the entire tool from the ground up, and we're able to get the cost down, and that includes surface systems as well as the downhole tool.
So obviously having that that differentiator, which I think a lot of companies like forget to look at when they're getting things started, is like, oh, we need a differentiator. What was it that you saw or that like really sparked your interest to be able to do this? What was the first differentiator that you saw that you were like, okay, that's the one, our cornerstone, that's going to be the one that allows us to be able to build what you guys are at right now?
Well, there are several bits and pieces of technology that you can buy on the open market, and there are some things that you cannot buy. The difficulties in the market today of drilling faster, a lot of that had to deal with building an MWD tool that could solve all the problems. So the engineering innovation that we put into the tool from the very first day were to solve the shock and vibe problems, to improve the quality of the measurement, to improve the speed of the data coming up. All of these were market things that we attacked from the very beginning, and so we've continued to attack those and add technology. And I think that's what's made the difference for us, is that we continue to develop the technology. We continue to lead the market. And you know, we're not talking about competing against directional companies. Those are our customers. It ends up being that we compete with the directional companies sometime, but ultimately we're competing with the big guys. We're competing with Halliburton and Sperry, high temp tool from Halliburton, Baker, Schlumberger, rotary steerable. These areas we saw holes in the big guys' game, and part of that is the relationship. Engineers, and so it's a service that Gordon Technologies offers. It's not just an MWD tool with technological advantages. It's actually what we do with the data and how we provide it to the oil companies. And so we do go with the oil companies directly as much as we can to try to help the drilling engineers drill wells faster, which is where they get their bonuses from. We like to get the drilling engineers to compete against each other in the same company. The ones that use more to look at the data, and so it really creates a competition within the companies, and that tends to grow. So a lot of times we get started with an oil company and we do one well. Sometimes it doesn't work out. They're just interested in price, and that's not for us.
That's usually the extra tough operator.
Yeah, that's right. And so we like the operators that are interested in learning how to drill faster and taking the data that we give them and to save them money. And the oil companies that appreciate that's helped us to grow fast.
So you said something in there as far as being able to educate the drilling engineers. What's one thing, like if you could, given this platform, if you could educate drilling engineers, what would be that one thing that you really want to be able to educate them on, that like if they all knew that, it would make your process, whether it's sales, marketing, or gaining work, what's that one thing that would make your life easier?
Well, we designed the MWD system to run with any type of agitator, and each company, there are 4, maybe 5 agitator companies out there that we work with. Their technology, but they provide it to the oil company, and they don't always tell them the pros and cons to the settings or the frequency that the agitator runs or the amplitude of the signal that they create. And so my wish would be that the oil companies would become more educated on the pros and cons of how you set an agitator up. And so we help them, we show them But a lot of times they don't understand until we show them the shock data, and then we show them the ROP, and we say, you can go too far with this. You can take too much hydraulic pressure to operate the agitator. It kills the MWD signal. It actually makes it where your ROP drops. And a lot of them have no idea that there's a limit to the agitators on their effectiveness, and that you can't just take more pressure or tighten up the plate size or the pressure drop going through and actually create faster ROP. It doesn't necessarily work like that, but that's what the companies sell that have the product, right?
Yeah. So
there's an optimum, so we try to help them achieve that optimum and educate them, but it'd be nice if they already knew it.
I do see that a lot where there are, there's sales guys that are going out there and putting out kind of misnomers and that maybe don't affect their product, but affect other products that are being sold. And so it's like, you gotta, we can't do this because I know what that guy told you and how he sold you. And it's like, yes, that product works, but we can't run it at that parameter if you want this product, because there's so much overlap that takes place in our industry, but it's also very siloed at the same time. It's like, we work in this bin, even though our bin affects all the other bins.
That's right.
And so I see that's what you guys are essentially being. Are there other things that you guys have to combat with that as well? I mean, other than agitators?
Obviously, the types of wells that are being drilled, conventional versus rotary steerable. We have worked on with rotary steerables to build an MWD tool that doesn't fail running below the motor. That is approximately 20 to 25% of our business. We expect that to grow this year. So we're working with rotary steerable companies that want to work with us to try to find a fit for running their rotary steerable with our MWD tool. We hope that there'll be more rotary steerables come on the market that are reliable enough to grab a hold of the market, and we'd like to be part of that. So
as far as the rotary steerable market, so you see that increasing going forward?
I do. I see, number one, there are several rotary steerable companies trying to get off the ground right now. Obviously, having a reliable MWD system to send up the data is something that's needed to help them develop the product. But even companies like Schlumberger with the Orbit rotary steerable, it has improved significantly over the last 2 years. And so Schlumberger and their plan to create a business model of rental of rotary steerables with anybody, we were very familiar coming from Schlumberger from 2010 to 2013 that I worked. And working with the rotary steerable, I was aware of a lot of the things that they did, and things that would work for an MWD tool and wouldn't work, would make it not compatible. And so we found a compatible application with the Orbit where we run below the motor, and it puts our sensors 25 feet from the bit, and the market is just beginning for us. So it's according to if Schlumberger can supply the rotary steerable to the customers for us in a timely fashion. So we hope there will be more rotary steerables that can compete reliably enough to capture that market as well.
So do you think that that's a standpoint where you guys, as that rotary steerable market grows, that you guys will be able to continue dominating that market because of your MWD tools and technologies that you guys have?
Yes, it took us a year, over the last year, working with QEP and a couple other companies to eliminate all the failure modes. So we have a rotary steerable version of our tool, custom built for the application. We're rotating at 260 RPM with it, and we're going failure free on most of our wells.
Wow.
So that's, as one drilling manager said, that's a game changer, right? Sensors 25 feet from the bit. You don't need the real-time comms because you're close enough. You can see the changes. You're providing downhole RPM and shock and vibration, dynamic azimuth, 25 feet from the bit. And so the geosteering side of a rotary steerable, with not having to rely on real-time comms with it, makes it a more reliable design.
Excellent. So you also mentioned something there that I think is, from my perspective, in talking to some of your excellent sales team, Marty and Blake, and some stories that they've told me as far as y'all's growth, was failures, right? And that, I'll say this, and I'm not trying to harp on you guys. Every MWD tool will fail. Right. So if you're a drilling engineer watching this and somebody tells you, oh, our MWD tools don't fail, they're lying. Every pulsar, every battery, every directional module, all of them will fail. The differentiator is how fast you respond. And so I think that's something that you guys have, that I've heard stories about, like you guys attacking that issue. Yes. And having the fact that y'all have engineers in-house. Was that part of what you guys were doing to be able to build the company?
When we acquired, Pathfinder was acquired from Halliburton, there were a lot of problems with the tools. It was a very reliable design built by a very large service provider, and they had failure modes. And we realized at a certain point in time that we needed to designate engineers, mechanical, electronic engineers, the project ongoing continuously. We call it sustaining engineering. And so Gordon Technologies, that has been one of the staples. We proved it when we were at Pathfinder. With improving the reliability by, when you see a failure mode, you can't brush it off. It might be environmentally related, it might be related to the mud system that the oil company has. Regardless, if you want to make improvement, you've got to address those. You can't say that's just part of the problem and go to the oil company and tell them they need to fix this. They don't want to hear that, right?
Yeah.
They want you to fix their problems for them. And so we have gone to great lengths. So when we see a failure the first time, we mark it down. And when we see a failure the second time, we start engineering our way out of the issue. Even if it's not caused by us, it's caused by the oil company. And that builds up trust with the oil companies. And so we've been doing that, and we're very good at it. We have we've reduced the number of failure modes that we have significantly over time. Wow. Now, having an entire fleet of MWD tools all built the same is a challenge. And so the larger you get, you would like to upgrade your fleet, and we do that. We take great care to take the things we learn and to put it in every one of the tools. So we're up to 240 strings right now. Wow. So it starts getting more expensive. So the engineering savvy, I guess you could say, of designing and redesigning is to make all your tools upgraded to the latest standard that eliminates all the failure modes, and to do it very cost effectively. Yeah. And so that's part of the challenge that we do, and that we always look at how are we going to do this. We have to take cost into account when we do the redesign, and but ultimately we try to solve the problems as fast as possible.
Because that was always an issue for me when I was an MWD coordinator, MWD manager, is that we would have an issue, and then being able to diagnose exactly what the problem was, document what it was. Just getting failure reports from field hands is always difficult. So if you're a field hand and you want to, go from a level 3 to a level 4, start looking at some of the failure reports you've written. The better those are, the better chances are that you can get the attention of coordinators or managers. But just being able to take the information that happens in the field, being able to get the tool back in the shop, look at it, being able to diagnose what it was, and then being able to turn back around and say, okay, now how do we fix this going forward? And then taking all of that and then doing the feedback loop of getting back to the drilling engineer and telling him or her and saying, this is what took place, this is how we're fixing it, and this is what we expect going forward. Yeah. I'm not going to bash anybody, but there was a company I worked at where we had to outsource our MWD maintenance, and I couldn't get anything back for 6 to 7 weeks on just the initial stuff. And then it was okay, 6 or 7 weeks later, I've got this. Now I'm going to go back to the field hand and be like, hey, can you tell me about this incident? And he's like, man, I've slept since then.
That's right.
And I'm like, and so then you go into the meeting with the operator, and they're like, about these 75 failures you've had. And you're like, I know about one of them. I've got information to be able to talk about one of them. I don't have all of the others. So I think that's a huge thing for people or for companies to really be able to set themselves apart is how long does that feedback loop take? Because there is a drilling engineer who has to answer to their boss.
Yes.
And that drilling manager is going to go to the drilling engineer and say, hey, what happened here? Or they say, oh, we had an MWD failure. That's why, we didn't drill it as fast. We had this issue. And they're like, okay, why did you have the MWD failure? Well, I'm waiting on response from them. And so there's somebody's job at stake sitting there like waiting on that information. And then it's like this ongoing list all the way back to the field hand, to the shop guys, to the coordinator, to if there's sustaining engineers, all of these other people that have to get back involved to be able to feed it back to the drilling engineer, and for that drilling engineer to go to the drilling manager and say, yes, I can continue using this service company because I believe they fixed or addressed this problem, and we can continue going forward with them.
Right. So we take great care into giving a short-term preliminary response, and then having a report with conclusions in 10 days from time of failure. Wow. We're doing that with every place but the Bakken right now. The Bakken, it takes an additional 5 days to get the tools back to do the failure analysis. Also realize that how do we improve that? Our headquarters and our failure analysis team is actually in Scott, Louisiana, where we have a full service repair and maintenance facility, and we actually are sending technicians who can do the failure analysis in Midland. So we download all the data, we do an evaluation. Over 50% of the time, we will know what happened to the tool after it gets out before it even leaves the location. We download the recorders, we review the recorders, we can isolate the failure to 1 or 2 areas. Then by the time it gets back to our shop in Midland, Texas, we are already knowing what we're looking at. We're going to focus and we have an inspection process we go through. And I would say 90% of the time, in 2 days, we have the failure mode and a solution, right? Because a lot of the failure modes we know about, and we know how to prevent them and or have an upgraded tool. So we have these various upgrades of the tool. It's going all the time, but we can quickly take assets. Say LCM, for example. So every customer has their own potpourri of LCM, right, that they go through. Yeah. And some of them are very sophisticated, and they add a lot of things to it. And so we have variations as we've gone along. Part of the thing that Gordon takes pride in is the LCM resistance. We continue to develop and evolve that. We're in an area now with the Delaware where LCM is common, and you need to be prepared for it, and you need to be able to have a configuration of the tool that can handle the particular types of LCM. You can't build one tool for all LCM types. So LCM comes in variations between 20 thousandths of an inch to long strands, coarse, and so you need to be able to pick and choose what you're going to operate in. So it's not always a straightforward one tool for all applications. It's more, we have a tool for high LCM applications dealing with cottonseed hulls, cedar fibers, glass beads, and nut plug, right? And that's the one we run on most of the wells that we have, but we don't have them on all tools.
Okay. So. Well, I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about, since y'all's growth, how do you guys go about being able to get new field hands and having the level of education that they need to really be able to service the customer correctly? Because when I was a coordinator, getting new field hands in was always, it was one of those like, I hope I've got a good guy, but at the same time, like, I don't know, you somebody say, oh, he's a great guy, and you bring him on and you're like, oh, this is nothing but a headache. Like, how are you guys dealing with that? I guess that you can call it an HR problem. How are you guys dealing with that expansion of that many field hands?
Well, it was a real challenge early on. So when the market started to take off in early 2017, Gordon Technologies had secured the funding to allow us to grow at a rate of 4 MWD kits per month. And we could build the kits, but we quickly found out we didn't have the hands to run the kits. And so we began a process of creating a training program. We always have used our engineering to handle our documentation. So field operations manuals, training programs. The engineering guys got involved, and we created the curriculum. It allowed us to competently train field engineers from a college grad to start, because that's all we had. So in the spring of 2017, we rated all the universities for every college grad, knowing that they would not be able to run a job yet, but in time it would give us the younger generation of guys that would be there. We've done studies. We know that in 2 years you're going to lose 1 in 4 field engineers.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's just the fact of life, that the college grads, some of them don't want to be gone all the time. They like the money. And so the college grad is not the ideal way, but that's the way we started. So we built the training program to train guys from the very beginning who knew absolutely nothing about MWD. We also went out and got a friend of mine, Ron Harden. So Ron Harden had done the exact same thing of recruiting, finding competent field engineers, the stereotypes that we're looking for that will stick with us. And he was at Pathfinder, where we were on 120 rigs. Pretty much all the field engineers came through him. And so we gave Ron the daunting task of hiring 20 field engineers a month. And
wow,
that challenge was met. And once we got into Q4 and everyone started to pull back, the flood of field engineers of seasoned guys started to come. So today we're getting guys from all the major service companies, and we're getting any kind of time there's a fallout, such as Integrity going under. We picked up 6 field engineers, good guys we'd work with.
Wow.
We had actually trained them to run on COG work with us. They had the directional, so we had actually trained them already. And so
they're essentially already familiar with the system. It was just changing the
logo,
changing the sticker,
right.
changing out the logos, and
we don't have contract field engineers, by the way. We're investing in our field engineers. We're training them how to run our tool. There is a value that will grow with them in time, and you don't want that just to walk away. So you want to hire a full-time guy, invest in them, and take care of them, because they're a lead hand is. You can have the best tool in the world, but if you don't have a good lead hand who dots his I, crosses his T, make sure he communicates well, represents you on the outside as well.
yes.
So all of those things we look for in our field engineers, and we've been very blessed that we have a steady stream coming to us now.
I've always told guys that work out in the field alongside me is like, you are the first line of salespeople.
Yes.
Right? Like, it's one thing for the sales guy to go and get the job, but then any field hand is essentially an inside salesperson, because if you're out there and you're bad mouthing the product, or you're not getting along with anybody else, it does reflect badly on that person individually, but it also reflects badly on the company as a whole. And I've worked alongside other field hands that have said, yeah, I don't care if we keep this work, I hope they kick us off. And I'm like, man, if the people at your company heard you saying that, that's ridiculous. But yeah, for those guys to be able to represent you that way, that's amazing. So in talking about the sales guys, I know you've got a couple of other sales guys there with you. With this number of customers and having so few sales guys, like, how do you guys break up that and be able to get all of that done? Because with myself being an entrepreneur now, and I've got up over 20 clients, like, I feel completely burdened by trying to be able to expand, but yet still keep clients happy. I can only imagine with 240 strings and just a handful of sales guys. How do you keep those guys motivated and keep them going?
Well, it was one of the easiest sales jobs for our salesmen, with having a good product to go in. And don't get me wrong, I'll tell you, Marty Campbell's been fantastic, and the number of customers he carries is pretty impressive. And but it takes all hands on deck. And so Chris LaPointe, who's my general manager, and myself also make sales calls, and we chip in and we give presentations. We track data intensely, is the best way to put it. So we take those monthly reports and we go to the oil companies and we show them. how they're comparing with other oil companies on an ROP basis, footage drilled, how many days it takes to do the well. We actually can show them with other rigs in their county that they're in, the formations. And so it is a little more technical with what we do, but we do try to meet with oil companies once a month. And so I go to Denver once a month. I go to Midland once a month. And we have guys in Midland that we're hiring that go in as needed to address it. We're focusing on Midland by hiring people in Midland, and we're picking up some really good guys right now. It's not so easy to find a very good person in Midland that's going to live there that the oil companies know, but we've managed to do that over time. Yeah. And so the relationship we have with the Midland companies is growing, and with that, our ability for our coordinators or our operations manager to step in and fill in. The salesmen still have to go out and find the work, but once they get the work, we help them out. Yeah. So, but we now are up to 3 salesmen. One is somewhat of an entertainer type.
That's an important role.
It's an important role. You could call him an account manager, whatever you wanted to call him. And then we have some of our coordinators deal directly with the customers. Whatever the customer wants, how much attention they want, we try to meet that. My biggest fear is I'm going to get so many customers that I cannot stay in front of them, and that somebody else walks in and offers them a cheap package, and I'm not there to refute it, right? Yeah. So that is a problem, not having a lot of salesmen. But we also have a lot of directional companies that sell for us, right? Yeah. And so the relationships we have with the directional companies we work with, they need to represent us well, and we think they do. So they help too. Tremendous advantage when you have directional companies selling for you, right?
Excellent. All right, guys. So I'm going to take a quick look here at the phone. If you guys have any questions, start feeding them in. We haven't seen a whole bunch come in just yet. I don't know if you guys are afraid to ask Terry questions, but feel free to ask them. Anything is open, so we're not going to limit what the capabilities are, unless my phone's not updating. Have you seen any?
I am seeing there's 42 or 43 people watching right now.
Excellent. So guys, feel free to fire off some questions. There's 43 people watching. At least one person's got to have a question for this guy. And I'll tell you this, it's very difficult to be able to get him to sit still this long. So if you do have the questions, let us know. Yeah, I've seen the same thing here. So, all right. Mine's showing the same, so. If not, I'll start hammering off some more questions, but we're still not seeing anything there. So I guess 42 people, maybe they all got up and left their computers. Yeah. There's at least a handful of people watching. I don't know. All right, so then I'll ask you another question. Remote ops. We talked about this a little bit before we went on air, right. But I want to get, for everybody else that's watching, like we talked about, I'd seen kind of 2 different sides of it. One side's the operators wanting to be able to get better consistency with the performance, which is more of a directional drilling related item. Right. And then on the service company side of it, they're wanting to be able to pull field hands out so they can improve their bottom line and be able to increase a profit margin there, or just margins in general. Where is Gordon Technologies with this, and how do you see this portion of the industry changing as far as remote, and then we can go even further into automated and autonomous drilling capabilities?
Well, there's definitely a push for automation, and there are several companies that we're working with right now that have goals of reducing men when it's applicable, and when you're not needing. The more difficult the well, the less likelihood of doing the remote ops. So if you're running an agitator, if you're having detection issues, you're having to fight through the noise remotely. That's a very difficult thing. Part of the troubleshooting process that you go through might include replacing the actual computer system at the rig site, and that is a chore. So
yes. I've been there.
And so remote ops can help you, but there are no hands there. And so to have a hand on location is good. We feel strongly that having one hand on location is probably the way to go. We have had oil companies that look at just reducing, not going unmanned. I think unmanned has merit until you shut down the rig. And how much does it cost to shut down a rig because you didn't have a man at location? The more rigs you have, the more likelihood you're going to have that problem. So I think that if they get the bit problems and the motor problems resolved, and we're not tripping very often, then remote ops is more likely to occur. So some companies are further along than others, but I can tell you that I can always see in the laterals having at least one man, if not two men on location. So we're talking about the verticals, unmanned operations that are the big thing that people are trying to reduce their cost, and depends upon how many trips you make, right? If you have to run the guy out there every 24 hours and he's overseeing 5 rigs, he's not sleeping. And so it takes more men. So fully capable, Gordon is fully capable of doing remote ops. We certainly have the Neuralis surface system, and we also have TeamViewer available to us. We work and troubleshoot from a remote standpoint every incident anyway, and we will continue to grow our remote ops and our operation support group that we call them. So operation support is something that we had at Pathfinder. We were 3 guys on call for 100 rigs, and so you can do it. And it doesn't take a lot of men, but you need a reliable tool. We think we have that. So remote ops replacing men in the field, that's not something I would recommend, but obviously companies like Chevron are trying to do it, and
Yes.
and so but it's not something we're going to pursue right now. We think that providing quality service to the oil companies, saving them failures, that nickel and diming over a $700 a day hand for the quality of the product, it's not going to be as financially advantageous to the oil company as having no failures.
I mean, obviously, you guys have worked out a key to success. You don't need to
keep
changing up the recipe. What you guys are doing right now is obviously
Right.
bearing a lot of fruit for you guys. So
It really is. Let me say that. So from a reliability standpoint, running a failure-free job, we've had oil companies tell us the number is somewhere in the neighborhood of $45,000 it costs them for every failure.
oof.
And that Gordon is averaging right now in the Permian, we're averaging 193,000 feet drilled between failures. That's 11 wells. So
Wow.
So yes. So on average, if someone was really good and they had one failure every 2 wells, over a year's period of time, you drill two wells in a month. That rig drills, let's say, 24 wells in a year. And if they have a failure every other well, it's going to come into $500,000 that it costs them per rig over a year's time. And so if Gordon Technologies has one failure every 10 wells, it's 1/5. So you're talking $100,000 thereabout per year versus $500,000. So we've saved the oil company $400,000 per rig. That's the minimum. So reliability does make the big difference. So would you really want to add or reduce $5,000 or $10,000 a well for the vertical when you can save $400,000 for the year, right? So
Makes sense.
It does.
So we do have a question that came in from Neil Bergstrom. Thanks for watching, Neil. If anybody doesn't know, Neil is an absolute expert in magnetics. And so Neil asked the question, what is your opinion on solid state magnetometer sensors versus flux gates, or essentially MEMS versus Q-Flex?
Okay, so we have 2 electronics that we run right now. One is Neuralis MEMS based. We run it in West Texas, and then we run JAE hybrid electronics, which are your traditional sensor packs for high temp. The cost is a little higher to run the conventional sensors, but when it comes into the cost for repair, they're very similar. It depends upon the damage that's done to traditional sensor versus a MEMS-based sensor. MEMS-based sensor, they replace everything. So it's a flat cost no matter if you just have one little thing or multiple things on the board, any problem on the board, it's going to cost you the replacement of the board, which is going to cost you, a substantial amount of money. So the cost for repairs of the two are very similar. From a reliability standpoint, they're very comparable, the two tools. The way Gordon shock mounts our electronics, the reliability of the two modules are about the same. So hope that answers the questions. MIMS is better when you buy it new. It's very rugged. That's a very big plus. The repair and maintenance cost on getting it fixed are no cheaper in average. So.
Excellent. Well, Neil, I hope that answered your question. If you've got any more, please fire them off. Mark LaRue asks, is that Terry's hard hat on the table? It's a little dirtier than I expected. No, that is my hard hat, and it's only dirty because I threw it in the dirt. I didn't actually do anything to earn that. So, still looking. If anybody, I don't know why everybody's being so shy. We've got Terry sitting here. I know there were at least 6 people who text me and they're like, oh, you're gonna have him on the show. You need to ask him this or ask him that. And I was like, you guys should just tune in live and be able to ask yourself. So hopefully Mark's got a couple other questions to come along with it. So I'll ask, because since I've got the opportunity here with you. We also talked a little bit, like you said, as far as hiring field hands and stuff. What would you say to any of the field hands that are out there right now that are either being let go because of remote stuff or just like these seasoned guys that are out there, how to be able to set themselves apart to be able to get a job either with you guys or with another company, to really be able to make sure that, that they don't get, lost in the dust. Because I know when I was a manager, I was getting, 3 to 4 resumes a day. At minimum, I was getting that. I can only imagine how many you guys are getting with your reputation growing, as well as the number of international ones that you're probably getting on top of that. So what would you say to any of these guys as the best way to be able to set themselves apart and to be able to get noticed?
Well, first of all, there's some pet peeves on resumes that when you get one in, right? Number one, it should be
feel free.
It should be 1 page, right? If you want to add a second page, do references. When you start looking at resumes and people want to list all their history and go back, and that's fine, okay? But you're going to find when the interview process, you will figure all that out. What you're looking is someone that knows what they're doing. They're at least smart enough to know that 1-page resumes are what you're taught in college, and it's just introductory to you, right? So the second thing is staying with one company for an extended period of time is an asset to you. That we're looking for somebody that's stable. So jumping companies every 3 to 6 months kind of gets an X on you right away. I know there are reasons for that to happen. It shouldn't be happening for 5 years and 10 companies, right? So we look at those things. If you're employed, then you have a better shot at getting a job and negotiating, right?
That's true.
That's a big plus. But mainly, a couple of years with one company, having a couple of references, that goes a long way with Gordon Technologies. And so we're definitely looking for people with experience in the area. So if you live in Midland, Texas, you're high on the list because you're available to us. As you know, we also do high temp work. So if you are working with Halliburton and been working on their high temp tools, doing high temp work, that makes you valuable with Gordon Technologies as well. Realize that we have 26 high temp rigs running right now, and that our market continues to grow there. We have more jobs coming up. Right now, we're building 4 kits a month. 2 are high temp kits, 2 are regular temp kits. So our focus is on the growth that we're getting in the Haynesville and the Eagle Ford, as well as the Bakken, which is starting to grow for us. So if you're in North Dakota or in Colorado, we will like your resume as well. And it's the easy time, right? The guys had to go through the dead of winter, right? This year, so it's hard to get them out there in the dead of winter. Well, now's the time to go, right?
Yeah.
So if you're a field engineer and you can bring some expertise to the table, and you've stuck it out. Sometimes that's hard to do, but we're looking for you.
So what's one thing that you would look for then from, because this is something that, for myself, how I prided in my career is that going from the field to the office, and the way that I did it is that, you know, it was kind of baked into me when I worked at Schlumberger in Australia. Is like, when you get done with the job, you come back to the office. Like, you still have to work 6 days a week, even though you worked 35 days straight offshore.
Yeah.
You come back in, you still only get 1 day off a week. And so even though the job was done, we still had to go to the office. Well, I kept that going when I came back to U.S. land and started working for, you know, other companies. Is like, well, this is just how you normally do it. And then I figured that's how it worked everywhere. I didn't know that, like, you get all these days off. I didn't realize that. Yeah. So for you guys though, how do you guys go about evaluating somebody from being in the field to being able to bring them into the office?
Well, obviously, you know, what role would you come into the office? If you were coming in a tech support role or operations support, which tech is more of the surface system support, and operations support would be more of troubleshooting the environment and things that go on. Those are big areas that we have growth. We also have failure analysis that we grow into the office, and we have, even from a job preparation, we go to great lengths to test our tools before they go on jobs. And so we use our field engineers to help with that. Sometimes we use trainee field engineers to help with that. But as we continue to grow, we'll plug the spots. So the field engineers that are lead field engineers that maybe feel like their time has come to get out of the field. So in order to get that position with us, a lot of the senior field engineers are given that opportunity. Probably not as many as we'd like. Yeah. There's just not that many positions, and we certainly don't want to take our best field engineers out of the field. But you know, examples, we work a 20 and 10 schedule with all our field engineers.
Wow.
Yes, and well, we did that because the clients were requiring it. They don't want you overworking. There's some companies that have policies that you have to give me a rotation of your field engineers, 20 and 10 schedule. I would say over 25%, if not more, of the oil companies we have demand that we put them on a rotation. They want the same field engineers every well, so we have 3 of them. 2 of them are working at any given point in time. So every 10 days there's a change in 1 guy. And so we've done that across the board, which makes all our field engineers happy. The ones that
I can only imagine.
The ones that want to work more, we'll oblige them when we can. But the oil companies want the same field engineers, and they want them rotated, and that's what we're doing now.
I've heard that consistency issue before with some of the different operators that I've talked to, is that obviously there's a consistency of performance, but there's a consistency of performance that's related to the consistency of having the same field hands out there.
That's right.
So I'll fire off this one last question, unless we see some more guys come in here and comment. At least, guys, hit the little thumbs up button so we know some of you that are out there that are watching. Let us know that you actually exist and that it's not just a fake number out there. We are up to 46, so watching live. So one big question for me is, and this is something I've always found as a challenge being a sales guy, is if somebody's got a new technology, what's the best way to be able to approach that new technology if it's something that they believe could help out Gordon Technologies? How would you say, you know, whoever it is that's out there that's watching, wish they could get your attention and get an hour alone like this with you? What would you say to them as far as here's the best way to approach us to get us to look at it?
Well, from technology, we're always looking at new technology. The good thing about Pelican Energy Partners, the equity group that supports us, they are always looking at new investments to make with new technology. It's what they do well. So they are looking. So Pelican certainly will be an equity group that's similar to what you would see. If you want to come to Gordon Technologies, you can talk to Pelican. If you pass them, then they will probably forward you to me for an additional evaluation and my 2 cents worth about the technology, if it's going to work. And you know, I've been very open-minded. We're always looking at where's the next market trend going. So I think that is part of our success, is we don't sit with the tool that we have right now. And so, yeah, we're definitely looking at all times to improve the portfolio. And so if you have a product and you think it can save the oil companies time and money, that's the key.
Those
are the two, right?
Yeah.
You can save them time, but if you don't save them money, that, there would be companies that would put more cost into what they're doing. It might save them time, but it costs them more to do it, right? So find a way to save the oil company time and money, and time is money in today's market, and we've used that same exact philosophy. So get a product. If you get the product and you're pretty close with it and you think it's ready to go, there are going to be people that listen to you and want to see what it does. So.
Excellent. Well, I didn't see any new questions pop up. So with this, anything you want to say to probably all of your field hands that are watching out in the field? Anything you want to?
Oh, the field engineers are doing great. We really do. We have a great group of field engineers. We take great pride in them. We're tough on them. We educate them. They make mistakes. We don't fire them when they make mistakes. We know that we just paid a learning curve. So we're very tolerant, but we want them not to make the same mistakes twice. And if you want to get in trouble, make the same mistake 3 times. That'll get you in trouble. So, but the field engineers make up the company for us. I think they represent us at the rig site. You can have the best tool in the world, but if you're sloppy at the rig site, if you don't give a good presentation on the rig floor, that can hurt you no matter how good your tool is downhole. So the field engineers are very important to us, and we provide a service, and they're our representative at the rig site, and they do a real good job of it. So.
Well, Terry, thank you so much for coming in today. Everybody that's watching, we want to thank our sponsor for today. It was Upside Down Directional, which does not exist. So if you do want to sponsor, feel free to get in touch. If you guys are looking to find out, if you're a drilling engineer and you want to find out more about Gordon Technologies, it's GordonTechnologiesLLC.com, which is a question I forgot to ask you about, but we'll do that another time. It's a long website, but GordonTechnologiesLLC.com. Reach out to them. They're also on LinkedIn, as well as Terry's on LinkedIn as well. So if you have any questions for them, any of the field hands that are trying to get a job with them, you heard it here first. 1-page resumes is definitely what he's looking for. So thank you so much for coming on the show today. I do appreciate it. If you guys have any other follow-up questions, feel free to throw them on here.